Welcome to Cerebral Women in Paris Art Talks podcast. I'm Phyllis Hollis, your host. Years ago, after hearing an artist say art will save us, my intellectual curiosity was sparked, and I began a journey to understand exactly how. Through conversations with visual artists and the professionals who support them, I explore how art helps us see our history, our culture, our lives, and the experience of others in ways no other medium can. Capturing these voices is essential. They remind us of the power of art and the importance of noticing life's simple beauty. And now, here in Paris, a city that has long welcomed the daring, the dreamers, and the defiant, I continue these conversations where art breathes, questions, and reminds us that creation itself is an act of liberation. Welcome and enjoy Cerebral Women in Paris. In this episode, I feature Kandy Lopez. She is a multidisciplinary artist exploring cultural identity, representation, and power through fiber art, portraiture, painting, and mixed media. Born to Dominican parents, she draws from the experience navigating multiple cultural landscapes. Kandy holds a BFA in painting and a BS in marketing management from the University of South Florida, and earned her MFA in painting from Florida Atlantic University in 2014. Her background in both fine arts and business informs her meticulous material investigations and strategic engagement with art institutions. She is currently an associate professor in the Department of Communication, Media, and Arts at Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale, where she integrates critical theory with hands-on material practice. Enjoy this episode featuring multidisciplinary artist Kandy Lopez. Kandy, welcome to Cerebral Women in Paris. I'm delighted to have you here, curious to hear about your practice. Let's start with, when did you recognize your artistic passion?
Thank you for having me, by the way. I think that I really started to like art, I would say in like 7th and 8th grade, when I knew that there was some kind of psychological alleviation and technical growth. I feel like in 6th grade, I just picked it up to be with my best friend. But by 7th grade, I was like, oh, you can actually learn how to draw and you can learn how to paint. You don't have to be born with this thing, which is what you are told, like you're born to do this thing. I don't feel like I was. I feel like I was taught.
Interesting. So given that you're a multidisciplinary artist, I want to ask you now, how do you define your practice?
I would say I'm a portrait maker. So I'm really obsessed with depicting people, particularly people that kind of relate to my story. So Black and brown people, those that have been marginalized in society. I like to play with a lot of different mediums because I like the metaphors that come from, let's just say, like glass, but particularly stained glass and the history of that in art and also religiously, just like icons. I also like to play with fiber because it's soft, but also strong if together. It also connects intergenerationally. And I'm also someone that likes to push boundaries. So fiber is usually considered craft art. And what would that look like in a fine art setting, whatever that means? So depending on the material, like I'm a painter, but I'm just painting with different materials or mediums.
And what materials and mediums do you use?
I am currently playing with glass when I get a little too comfortable with fiber. So my fiber works deal with yarn and thread, and I'm using a hook rug mesh as the backing that holds the yarn and the thread to create larger than life-size portraits of people of color. And then my stained glass works, I am trying to figure out a way where I can depict people and fiber together. So I've gone to a few residencies that also have like glass workshops in it. And I'm trying to find a way where I can mesh something that's easily burnable and something that bends with fire. So like fiber will melt off, right? Where like glass will just melt. And how can I have these two together in a space where it doesn't feel like I am weaving it through pieces of glass, but more like the yarn is embedded in the glass.
Interesting. So how has your technique and creativity developed over the last, let's say, 10 years?
Like I mentioned, I play a lot with different materials. So 10 years ago, once at 2015, I had a full-time pension plan position at Daytona State College. I was a year out of grad school, so I was playing with printmaking because that was, in my brain, a connection from painting to creating multiples in print. There was still like that painting element that happens in printmaking. Plus, I like to draw. Like, I really love line work. So printmaking was something that I fell in love with in grad school and then after grad school. So I was making collages back then, and then I was starting to incorporate thread into the work, but it wasn't something that was what it is now. I was also making watercolors. Then we decided to have a family and I couldn't paint or print make. And then I went back to using thread, and I finally got my first residency after applying for so many in grad school. So my first residency was in Hambridge in Georgia in 2021. And I proposed to create like a rug of a person of color in color for the first time then. And then I fell in love with that. So that has like pushed me. And then in 2023, I started experimenting with glass because I was getting too comfortable with fiber. So I always need like something to push me out of my comfort zone to, depict the message metaphorically.
How did your art professors impact your work?
Wow, that's a good question. Middle school was very impactful. So I had two teachers. I had Mr. Obregon and Miss Drazel, who married and became Miss Atkinson our last year. And they really wanted to have inner city kids go to the best high school in South Florida, and then from there go to the best art college or university in the state or out of the state. So they really pushed us technically, like trying to figure out how to make something look as realistic as possible, understanding reflection, light and shading, understanding how color helps to depict certain light. They also helped us with, we had like darkroom photography, we had ceramics, we had printmaking. Like we had a lot of makeshift things because it was an inner city school, which means there was lack of resources. So we had to share a lot and come up with ways of how to create a print without using an etching plate, right? So rubber or erasers or whatever it is that they can find, they really sparked that creativity in me. And then in high school, I had Mr. Wairoba and Mr. Hunter, who really pushed us conceptually. We had means by that point, so it was the best art school in South Florida, New World School of the Arts. And they were really, really tough, but also very, very honest. And they wanted us to get to the best art schools, for undergrad. And then I would say Elizabeth Condon was someone that really pushed me in undergrad. She was a painter. She showed us how to mix paint, how to stretch canvases. So there was a lot of that I fell in love with. And then she put me in connect with Carol Prusa, who was my graduate committee person. And she was also a painter, but she was a mother. So I got to see what that can be within the art world. She changed my views a lot of figuring out if I wanted a family or not. And then the last person I'm gonna mention is Juana Valdez, who's an Afro-Cuban artist. And she was the first Black Caribbean female, like strict art maker professor that I met that was like a mentor, even though I don't think she understands how important her role was for me, especially during that time.
We'll have to make sure she gets the link to this episode so she can listen. Can you recall if there was a particular artist that influenced you early on?
Like most adolescents, it was the Ninja Turtles. So, like Michelangelo and Raphael and Donatello, and the way that they sculpted and painted and created these massive, realistic looking religious scenes. That was something that really impacted me. Frida Kahlo was another one because she was a minority representing herself in various forms and using like different iconography to tell a story of her identity, I thought was really interesting. I really love Georgia O'Keeffe's paintings and the symbolism within the work. in undergrad, I started researching a little bit more of different artists. So Jenny Saville was someone that I didn't really understand how she made a face out of just like strokes of different colors, but somehow they made a face. DeWood Bay, the photographer, I really fell in love with because he was depicting what I wanted to say within my work in grad school, but with photography. Barclay Hendricks is somebody that I also am obsessed with. Faith Ringgold, Micheline Thomas, Kahindi Wiley, Bungichi Mutu. Like, there's so many.
I can imagine, yes. When do you know work is finished?
When I don't want to see it anymore. Like, there's certain areas that I'm like, I think that doesn't need to be filled in. Like, I think that the viewer understands what's happening here. I also think like a lot of the times it's intuitive, where I'm just like, yeah, that's done. Like, I don't need to add anything else or subtract anything else. Like, it is what it is. And sometimes a message comes later too. Like, I don't realize at the moment why I'm making certain choices until I see them together. I'm like, oh, you know? But that's more intuition, I would say.
And when do the titles of a work enter the creative process?
Sometimes it's from a book. Sometimes it's from a podcast. Like if they're defining something and I'm like, oh, that's what I want to say. And then I know what image I would like to depict from that. And then the easier ones is when it's, you know, people that I know. So it's just a title with their names so that you know that this is a real person, which is one of the questions I get too, is like, are these real people? Are you imagining them? No, they're real people walking on this earth that should remind you of other people that you know. And then sometimes it comes from a song, like a lyric in rap music specifically.
Do you listen to music while you're working?
I do. I listen to a lot of, well, it depends. Like, it depends on how I wake up that day. Sometimes it's like, I just need something to relax me. And sometimes I need something that's a little bit more upbeat so I can like really tackle the area that I want to tackle. Sometimes music is just too much and I put on a podcast. Sometimes a podcast is comedy, other times it's political, other times it's joyful. So it really depends on my mood.
Do you feel that Black or brown art or Hispanic or Latinx art can be defined?
Yeah, so my parents are from Dominican Republic. I was born in Jersey and I grew up in Miami. And I've traveled to Dominican Republic. So there's a lot of like identity issues that have happened in my life, especially like being multicultural and like this definition of what race is and what underserved and marginalized and minority as terms. I don't know how I feel about the term Black art. I feel like people just make, you know, like some people like myself make depending on who I am. And that just happens to be a Black, brown girl from Jersey who grew up in Miami, who's also Dominican.
Right.
I think about that often because at times I use the label to identify, to connect to certain communities and also to stand out in others. But then at other times I'm like, well, but why? So there's like this juxtaposition that's constantly happening on like defining and undefining, putting myself in a box and then like opening the box.
How do you keep learning?
Man, that's one of the things that why I picked to become a professor. So like there was choices, right? Like I went to school, I got my business degree, but I also got my BFA in painting. And the business degree was in marketing and management. So in my brain, I was like, if I don't, you know, work as a painter, a printmaker, or whatever, like an artist, at least I have the business part. So I'll work in like an art museum or an art gallery or in a non-for-profit space that creates art or like teachings, like in some capacity. But then like in undergrad, I fell in love with the possibility of having summers off and having a studio space and being able to like learn as you're teaching, because you have to teach what's current. And for you to know that, you have to do the professional development, like go off to workshops, get together with other professors to figure out what they're doing in another state, read like new textbooks because the one that you have is out of print or is old. So you need to like stay up with, you know, what is out there. So That's another reason why I decided to teach, not only that I loved it, but that I was also learning. And I'm a very curious person. So it's like the best profession for me.
It's great when you find it.
I know.
Do you feel your life experiences are reflected in your work?
Yeah, 1,000%. I'm representing people. I feel like they're self-portraits in one way or another, trying to understand anatomically how we're put together, trying to understand the choices that we make when we decide to put something on and how we want to present ourselves to the world. The glimmer of hope in people's eyes, or like a wall that they put up because they don't really know me, but they said yes, that they want to be photographed to be part of this artwork. So there's a lot of things that happen within each piece. And again, it's intuitive. So there's messages that I'm putting in that I'm not certain of at the time that come back later, that are reflections of what I was thinking about at the time. Or there's a lot of things happening within the work that I think I haven't put together in totality yet, especially with the newer works.
Mm-hmm. And while you're creating, do you think about who your audience is? And do you think about what they may think when they see your work?
That's a good question, too. I think that I make what I want to make.
Yeah.
And what excites me. And I also consider the audience for certain pieces. Like, I have an idea in my brain, and it's been something that I wanted to work on for a few years because I really love flesh. I just think about how the viewer is going to consume the flesh and the kind of messaging that I'm throwing out there for people that look like me. So yeah, sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. I feel like the project will come when I am verbally ready to talk about those things.
As an artist, what would you say have been some of the most substantial challenges that you faced?
I don't know. I feel like I've gotten really, well, I would say lucky and also blessed. I think one of the major challenges is deciding if this is something I want to do for a career, because teaching is part of making for me. But as an adolescent, and I see it in my students too now, is like they're constantly questioning if this is what they want to do, and then how are they going to financially support themselves with this career. They don't see, and I didn't either, all of the other middlemen possibilities or middlewoman possibilities in the art world. There's a lot of agents within the art world. There's a lot of different positions that they can hold and take and also create something new. I think that was the hardest thing for me, is like seeing myself inside of the space, even though like teaching was something that was central for me.
Thank you. What are you excited about right now?
I'm excited and nervous about 2026 and 2027. I've been with my gallery for 2 years, ACA Galleries in New York, and they're my first and only gallery. It's exclusive, and there has been so much progress within the last 2 years of just being able to show my work to a larger audience because of their network and also their location. And there have been things that I wouldn't have ever fathomed would happen, including like being represented. Like, I didn't think about that. I just knew that I wanted to make art and show my art as much as possible and just have people see themselves in spaces. Like, that was my goal. And I was like, if I do 6 exhibitions a year, like, that's great. And then it got to the point where I was like, okay, now I'm at 12 exhibitions. Like, I shouldn't be applying to anything else. Like, people are already asking me to be part of shows, which is a good thing. But it was also stressful to try to manage that. And my kids were babies and teaching and being a wife. So then when the gallery came in, I was extremely nervous because it's also letting go of control of something that I understand and I put together myself. But there has been so much amazing things that have happened because I'm with them. And 2026 is bringing new, bigger things, which scares me a little, but also like I'm excited for, because that just means more people get to see the work and get to feel the work.
Yes, you should be very excited.
Yeah, excitedly nervous.
I mean, you have 4 shows closing between December 19th and January 25th.
Yeah.
You stay pretty busy.
Pretty busy, and they're like everywhere. So, Paris and Florida and New York and North Dakota, and it's just like getting to know different places in the U.S. and now abroad is really exciting.
That's great. What do you feel is the purpose of art?
I think to inspire, to educate. Sometimes it's also not for the viewer. Sometimes it's just for you. I think I get into like a meditative trance when I'm creating, where like hours go by and I forget that I didn't eat, or like I didn't talk to my kids, or my mom sent me like 5 text messages and she thinks I'm dead, but really I'm like in the studio working, because I'm in a trance, and I think that helps me process my feelings too. So it's kind of like art therapy, even though that sounds so cliche. And at the same time, you're also inspiring other artists if people see your work. So putting your work out there is like really important, because you never know. I hear that a lot. It's like, oh, I'm so inspired to get back in the studio, or I'm in the studio because I saw your thing and I have these ideas that I want to try. And like, I love that. Make, feel.
Yes, the world needs you to do that. This has been a great interview, and
Yay!
I've enjoyed it very much. This is our last question. How do you hope your work will impact the way people think?
I just want people to connect to it. I want people to feel something when they're looking at the piece. I think that you view it and you think you recognize it, like, oh, that's a painting. But I think I grab people when they like move up and they're like, oh no, this is made out of yarn. And then it's like, well, how is it made out of yarn? Well, how can she express that with just the eyes? And how is this thing put together? And who are these people? Oh, that reminds me of my brother or my uncle or my boyfriend or whatever. I like that. And I also like that they're so massive that they take up space. I like when they're suspended in the middle of the room, so the viewer has to walk around them physically. They're not moving out of your way. I like that the viewer can see themselves inside of the space and inside of the person, because the hook rug mesh has holes, so it's kind of see-through. I like that you can change the way that it's viewed or communication when you have a different colored background, or if it's lit differently, or if it's placed on a window where you can like see the landscape behind it. I just want connection in any kind of way or form. Even if people are like, oh yeah, that's nice, and they move on, at least there's something that's there, Mm-hmm. But I really like when people get emotional when they look at the work. I just can't be in the same space when they get emotional. Like they can cry looking at the work and I could just be like in a corner, like, oh, I'm so happy that impacted them or reminded them of something.
Right.
Which has happened a lot. Yeah, but stay over there because, I'm going to be crying too if I'm like, you're crying with me, which has happened multiple times. And I remember the first time that happened, I was like, oh my God, I'm doing something,
Oh, yes. I mean, it has to be very inspirational and touching to see somebody impacted so strongly with work you've done, with work you've created with your hands,
Yeah, that's wild. Like, this
is
is just yarn with a hook rug mesh.
Yeah.
And these people are like looking at the work sobbing because it reminds them of their grandmother or like their experiences or their mom. Like, there's so many connections that happen within the work. And when people like pose in front of it, like the people that I'm depicting, it's also funny. Like they get in the same like stance, but they're like so rigid. That's also cute.
Yeah, that's great. Gosh, wouldn't it be wonderful if everybody enjoyed their profession as much as you sound like you do? Yes, it's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm very happy for you. And I'm glad we connected. Glad I get to share your words with my listeners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you for listening to Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast. For additional content, please visit cerebralwomen.com and be sure to follow Cerebral Women on Instagram.